Good morning, good morning, good morning again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I hope online that you can hear. The chat has been disabled, so there's no way for us to communicate with you and know if anything. Yeah, they disabled the chat. So I guess they're just in listening mode only. All right, so we are going to get started. I'm glad that you all are here. We're going to have a robust discussion on adult learners integrating empowerment experience, and with the heart of the presentation being about mental health and how all that impacts the learning journey for our adult students. Okay, great. Thank you, Matthew. Oh, wait, being behind here. Okay, this was just illness. This. Okay. All right, so here is our agenda. We have a lot packed into a short amount of time. We're going to move as expeditiously as we can because we do know that people have flights to catch and or want to attend other workshops. We're going to have an icebreaker. We're not going to be lecturing to you throughout the next hour. It's going to be an interactive conversation throughout the presentation. There's going to be case studies that we're going to be asking you to read. Definitely, you've been in workshops throughout our time at this conference together. So yes, you will be scanning some QR codes and actively participating in that manner. We do have a resource folder for you that the presentation is on with additional support to the presentation. So before I go any further, I am Baroni Lawrence, and I'm joined here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Lakia Murray, and she's going to introduce herself shortly. So here are some fun facts about me. Dr. V is what most of my students, clients call me. So learning styles come in different formats, and this is one of the ways that you can present information to individuals that they're not overloaded, to use graphics. And so you'll see the Royal Mail Post Office, well, mailbox. That's indication from how the mail is picked up in England. I am born and raised in England. I literally just got off a plane and came from the UK to Texas to this conference. So trust me, I am tired after flying through 6 different time zones. I'm also an athlete. I'm a runner. I'm in rehab right now, but that was my last race that I did, the Ted Corbett race. As I mentioned, I like to travel, so that's a tale of an airplane. My beautiful godchildren, though they can be bad at times. I am a preacher. I'm a woman of faith. That's a picture of me preaching with my pastor behind me. I am an author of 2 books. So I was at a school. I'm doing a college prep class and had a discussion afterwards and signed some books there. And I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So those are some fun facts about me. And I'm going to ask Lakia, Dr. Murray, to introduce herself.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I am Dr. Lakia Murray. So I am an assistant clinical professor at Fordham University. Oh, yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. So I am Dr. Lakia Murray. I'm an assistant clinical professor at Fordham University. So I have a huge background in mental health. So I started in mental health in social work in 2009. And from there, I've been a caseworker. I've been a supervisor at different not-for-profit agencies. I was a director as well. I supervise interns, have done private practice, I've been a medical social worker. I've been all over social work. So I have a huge, I would say a huge range of different expertise in the areas as well. And some fun facts about me. So if you can see a little video here, I like to go on vacation whenever I can, go to a beach and relax if possible. I have a soft spot for chocolate, so I do love my chocolate. As you'll see here is my kryptonite. It makes me feel better if I'm like overwhelmed or a little bit anxious. I am also, if you see here, is a picture of, I believe, mother and child. So I'm a family woman. I have 3 kids, a husband, so love family as well. And I'm also a proud member of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so here we go. We're going to jump into scanning. So you can pull out your respective devices and to follow along. So you don't have to, the presentation is in there so you can have it on your own device and follow along virtually and in person. You will, this does pop up again. It didn't go to the next slide. We're on the same page? Because I can't see it. Okay. You will have to go into the QR code at some point because later on in the presentation, there will be material in there that you will be able to read along with. So I'm going to just leave it up there while some of you are scanning. So you should see a folder and you can go to the E3 PDF and that will pull up the presentation. So you can follow along on your own devices if you desire to do so.
Yeah, is that in? Okay. And what is that? E3. Yeah, it said E3.
There should be like 5 different documents in there, but the PowerPoint is what you need, what you could follow along with for right now.
Are you able to get it? I see someone bringing it to my Google Drive.
Right. Right, it is a Google Drive folder, so if you just click on it, then it should open up for you.
Oh, saying you need access. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm doing it right now. Okay, let me go back and.
Yes.
Mhm. So I know I just press share for.
Yes, that's the power. You got it.
Online, are we okay? I don't see any more requests for, you got it? Awesome. Got it?
Not yet, it's moving slow.
It's moving.
So.
There you go.
Okay.
So now E3, right there, the PowerPoint's right there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You ready to begin it?
Access.
I just go to his Google Drive and go to, because she already gave him access. Okay.
And I am,
I just find this.
and I've just changed it, so no one needs to request it anymore. You should automatically just do it.
Bottom says, it's on video. Hold on.
Right, so I think we're almost in the same place. So these are objectives for today's session: identifying the adult learner and their needs, empowerment through education, through learning styles, creating a greater awareness, which is really key, not only for learning styles, but greater awareness for mental health, also discussing the impacts of mental health on learning styles and having open discussion. So again, here goes a QR code. Who's in the room? Tell us, and actually, since we're such a small group, we don't necessarily have to scan that. Just tell us who's in the room. Like, what's your title? What do you do? Sorry.
Okay, my name is Rocio Santana. I am the Adult Education Director in Indian River State College, Florida.
Right.
And my name is Tori Smith. I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I'm the ELA coordinator for Richmond Public Schools Adult Education. Priscilla O'Neill from Dallas College. And what do I do? I'm a project lead over engagement coordinators, so career navigators, do ESL, GED, and short certificates.
Okay, you do a lot. You saw me, what do I do? You do a lot right here.
I'm Jaleesa Alexander, and I'm the instructor and career coach for the adult education program in River Parish and St. Louis College.
Sir. Nice, nice, nice. Online, feel free to drop what you do, your titles in the Q&A, and it will pop up. So we have a diverse group. Yes, we're all in the adult education space, but we're doing different things. And so we do believe that this information from this presentation will be able to help all of you in your respective spaces and places. So we know that the adult population is very diverse. They come to us with different socioeconomic backgrounds, different ages, different career job situations where they are and where they actually want to go to in their career. We know they are multitasking, usually they're family oriented, have come from different life experiences. And some of those life experiences are challenging and have given them challenges and sometimes can definitely impact their educational journey. Thus why they're now making a choice to come back at this particular stage of their life. And I emphasize choice because there's such power in them having the choice to make that decision to say, you know what, now is the time, regardless of what society is saying that, oh, you should have had this then, right? Timing is important and they're able to make the choice. And we'll see a little bit later in the presentation how choice plays into empowerment. So some of the foundational research, and I'm quite sure since you all are experts in the space and the place, you know the name of Malcolm Knowles. Anybody not know the name Malcolm Knowles? No, okay, so we're all on the same page, that we know that he is the father of adult learning education. So, I'm not going to do a deep dive, that we know that he basically highlighted how we are supposed to incorporate life experience and how this adult learning education is different from the pedagogy of K through 12. Yes, we can take some of the tools and skill sets from the K through 12 area, but we know usually with K through 12, they're pretty much coming to us as we need to learn. You need to tell us everything, right? There's not that sense of self-direction, the sense of self-autonomy, which Malcolm Knowles speaks about in his research. Also, the constructive theory and project theory, which talks about the building blocks, using the adult life as building blocks in the educational experience, incorporating the life experience into the curriculum. One of the places that I was a dean, and I failed to mention in my introduction, I'm now an assistant professor at Mercer University and City University of New York. But before switching back into faculty, I was a dean. And an assistant vice president at a totally adult college. The College of New Rochelle was a 115-year-old institution and closed back in 2019. That one of the things that we would do, and some of your places may have this, we would do life arts project. It may be called something different in some of your spaces, but basically we would have students take their experience, whether it's from work, something that's happened in their life. They would have to write pretty huge paper, 25 to 30-page paper, coupled with research, and based on that experience, we will transfer that into college credits. Does anybody have anything like that in their spaces? No, it may not be called a life arts project, but where you're actually taking the adult life experience and turning it into college credits. That's a part of also what the constructive theory is, that you're using that life experience as building blocks. So this is just a little bit more about the adult learner, them taking responsibility for their decisions. The adult learning space, when they now make the choice, which is empowering, to come back to the college space, come back to the academic space, I should say, it can be scary. It can be very nerve-wracking for them. And so how do we as educators in our various spaces and places help them to build that autonomy, that they're now taking the responsibility for their educational journey, a space that they're unfamiliar with? How do we go about doing this? I'm gonna just throw that question out there real quickly. How do you do that in your spaces and helping them to gain the sense of autonomy and responsibility in a space that they may feel a little uncertain? Remember, I said at the beginning, for those of you who are here, we are not lecturing, we're gonna have a conversation.
So for me, when they come into the program, from the intake process, I wanna know why you're here. What is driving you, but then I also wanna know what is gonna stop you from coming or continuing, because we need to know what we're facing, what barriers could possibly be in our way. And then I have a conversation about what supports, what resources you already have. And then what can I do for you? So I try to give them the autonomy, and then once they finish pre-testing and all of these things and we go over placement, I tell them, these are the pathways. Now you tell me which one speaks to you. And then we create a learning plan. So I try to give them as much say as they can. And sometimes some of them won't say anything, like they just don't know. I just drove here today, I saw the sign, and now I'm here. And sometimes it just takes me saying, and then as they're showing up, we can have more conversations. So I think for us, it's just really about, giving them that space to feel like it's theirs and taking ownership. I throw out the checklist, cause we have checklists from my director. And sometimes the checklists don't fit the student. So sometimes I just have to do away with the checklist so they can have their ownership and don't feel like they're in the box that, you know. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I wish we had more time. I would ask more of you to share, but we don't. But thank you so much for that rich input. So factors that frame the adult learning benefits. Neuroplasticity. If this was a psych class or a psych lecture, there will be a deep dive into that. But that basically just speaks to the cognitive ability for them to connect old information to new information. Making meaningful learning, right? And the conversation that you have with them from the onset of their intake is creating meaningful learning. Meaningful learning basically means that you are helping the adult learner connect their past to their present to where they want to go in the future. If they cannot see that, it becomes very difficult for them to remain committed to the journey, right? And so that's something that each of us should be asking ourselves when we are engaging them in conversation. How do we get you from your past, and make sure that your past is not holding you back? And Dr. Murray will speak more to that. Your past to your present to your future, making the learning meaningful. You work at the post office, you got a math class that you're struggling with. How do we make this math make sense? Because you're at the post office and you're counting stamps and somebody wants 10 stamps and they're 55 cents. They still 55 cents, whatever they are, right? Even though they may be struggling with the concept, you're making it make sense to them in real life. And that's what our adult students really, really thrive off of. There are cognitive skills, building on that, all of this, the neuroplasticity, the meaningful learning, cognitive skills, all leads to the bottom bullet, which is their confidence. If we cannot build their confidence, it just makes the journey so much harder for them. Right. And some people say, well, how do you help people believe in themselves? Right. And then I'm kind of going ahead of myself in the presentation. They all got skill sets. They do not come to us as blank slates. They come to us rich, and it's our responsibility to tap into those skill sets, have them see it, and then move forward in it, right? And that confidence will take them a lot further sometimes than anything that you and I can actually say. So learning styles, second part of this presentation is learning styles. So you can scan, again, we're a small group. How many learning styles are there?
3.
We got 3. She said, I have no idea. 4, we got 4. 3, 4, 5. So y'all gonna just start just yelling out numbers, right? Because you went from 3 to 4, there was a 4 here. All right, so it's gonna come up in a minute. It's gonna come up in a minute. I love asking that question. All right, but I do want you to scan, and hopefully it works. This one, for you to input, what is your learning style? Let's see what learning styles are in the room. Online, please scan in. Let's see what learning styles are in the room. I don't know. Dr. Murray, can you scan this and keep track of the results? I don't think it's going to show on the screen. Is it a different slide? Oh, what is your learning style? Sorry. No. I want to know what is your, oh, sorry.
What that one?
Yes, what is your learning style? All right, sorry. So you can type in, you think there's 4, then you should be one of the 4. What is your learning style?
All right, not a more visual. 50% visual.
So now you just see from even scanning on the QR code that it's 7 learning styles.
give them a checklist at intake, but we don't have 7.
And most people don't. Most people do not realize that there are actually 7 learning styles. Those of us, especially in the educational field, we pretty much know that there are 2, sometimes maybe 3, sometimes you get 4. Very rarely any time that we have done this presentation does somebody actually say 7. I think I heard a 5 in the back, I'm not sure. But there are 7 different learning styles. However, even with the 7, I think the ones that we know about, I would say they rank at the top in regards to visual, auditory, kinesthetic / tactile. They rank at the top. What are any additional numbers on?
So 50% visual, auditory, 25% kinesthetic, 25%.
Mm-hmm. Hope online that you had an opportunity to chime in on what is your learning style? So as we see that there are 7, so we're going to start off and just move really quickly through. So we have visual learning style, of course, pictures, graphics, going back to the top of the presentation. Why Dr. Murray and I, we had different introductions, right? We could have just threw some words up there. We had pictures, she had a video. How do we engage our adult students to bring them into the information, right? We know we live in a heavy technological social media space. They're constantly being hit with so much information. How do we meet them where they are? So visually, I'm sure we're all very good with having PowerPoints, right? We can use YouTube, have little clips of videos to support the math, to support the history. If you're doing history, have a lot of maps, right? Instead of just telling them about, I said, I just came from the UK, right? Bring up a map of the UK, bring up a picture of Buckingham Palace, right? It will help them to remember the information if that is their particular learning style. One of the things you may do, and it was just mentioned, when you're doing intake, right? Have an assessment form real quick. They don't know what their learning style is. They've been out of the educational space for how many years, right? So you can't say to them like, hey, what's your learning style? They're gonna be like, I don't know, right? Do a quick, there's a bunch of free online services really quick that you can give them to get an assessment of, okay, so this is your learning style. And in the resource, you'll see for the top 3, the learning style and what a student can do in your presence and at home to support their learning style. That's in the resource center. Secondly, when we know about auditory, the listeners, right? They prefer speech and writing. These people usually want to be journalists. They can be in the production area. They have no problem listening to music while they're studying, where some other people do. So learners who have a learning style where they're verbally inclined, I usually tell students to record yourself, right? If you're studying for a test, say what the question is, say the answer, use it on the go, a way to retain the information. Learning style, was I on the wrong one? Because I'm seeing 2 screens. I'm sorry. This is verbal. So what was we on? Sorry, we were on auditory. Okay, auditory learners to record themselves. Sorry. Verbal are we on verbal?
Yes.
Okay, I'm making sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 2 screens. Verbal uses words. Journal writing is really great. Also because students like to see their actual what's in their mind, how to get it out into words. Encouraging students to journal their thoughts about the educational process is really a good way for them to move through the process a lot more seamlessly than sometimes they're not comfortable speaking to individuals, even though they may have a verbal learning style. They may want to use the writing style of the verbal learning style to get their words and their information out. Then we have kinesthetic. Kinesthetic and tactile go hand in hand. These are just students who like to touch things. They'll walk upon something and really look and get into the different pieces to understand how it's working. These are people sometimes who want to be plumbers, mechanics, chefs, actually always using their hands to understand how the material actually relates to them. I want to take 30 seconds to pause, because one of the things I tell adult students, yes, it's important to know your learning style, but it's also equally important to know your child's learning style. What I have found when I've been teaching adults and they go to parent-teacher conference, and especially for our young boys, our young men, they're tactile, they're kinesthetic, they want to get up, they want to move, right? They want to go to the side of the room and pick up some Legos and do whatever they're going to do. And then what ends up happening? They get labeled as misbehaving. They got to be on the spectrum. They need medication to calm them down. No, The teacher has a learning style, which is his or her strength, but you're not teaching to the room of 20 to 30 students and understanding you need different mechanisms to teach the students. And so I always encourage adult learners to, again, understand yours, but also understand what your child is, because they could be misdiagnosed just because someone's not understanding there's a different learning style to present the information. Are y'all tracking with me? Does that make sense? Then we have here, logical, mathematical learning style. Always reasoning, right? Wanting to get down to the bottom line of information. Things have to make sense, and it needs to be a clear, structured path. Again, I've seen it with students. If this is their learning style and they're not being spoken to and information being presented in that particular manner to them, then it's like, okay, you don't understand, and now you're on a spectrum. And again, there's nothing wrong if a child or an adult needs additional support. But what I find to be disserving is if they don't, but they're being labeled as such just because you're not understanding. There's a different way to present information. One of the things, again, we know about our adult students, it's not a cookie cutter approach at all. Then we have social learners, very interpersonal, like to work in teams. I like to tell adult students that sometimes that you need to have, and I'm going to jump ahead of myself, style 7, which is coming up, solidarity, being in a solo environment, but being back in, you can start off with a solo, but coming back to teamwork also helps you in understanding the information. I like to do a think, pair, share. Does anybody do think, pair, shares, right? I see some head nods. Where you can start off solo, but then sharing information with each other and then sharing it out with a larger group. Also, this is something that social, interpersonal learners actually do very well in this setting. Oops. And then we have our solo learners, who some people tend to think that they're very shy, they're withdrawn. Again, it can get mislabeled, right? Whether it's children and or adults, when that is actually not necessarily the case. The information is just not being presented to them in the manner that actually works best for them. And so understanding and having a greater awareness of the learning styles allows you to be able to structure your programs, structure your curriculum, structure your activities, that the adult students can get the best out of it. Also understanding that with having a greater awareness, understanding that mental health also will impact how these programs should be structured, how the curriculum could be structured, because there's been some levels, again, they come to us with so much that their mental health can be impacted, thus their learning styles will also be impacted. And with that, I will ask Dr. Murray to speak to you more about mental health.
Good morning again, everyone. Good morning. So before we get into the mental health content, I wanted to just do a quick trivia with you guys to see what we do and what we don't know about mental health and how it impacts our development. Okay, so what do you guys see? Okay, all right, so question, and you guys can just let me know whether you think it's true or not. A person's brain can subconsciously create coping mechanisms to help them deal with any mental health symptoms. True. What do you guys believe? False. I hear false. I hear true. Okay, so answer is, it is true. Your brain serves as an agent to your body. So think about someone who's in solitary confinement, who has been in this locked small room for 23 hours. Eventually, you'll start to see that they start to talk to themselves, and you'll think, if you're a psychiatrist, you'll give them a disorder. But really what it is that your brain is creating an extra person for you to help you cope with what you're currently going through. So your brain does create these different environments for you, I would say, or matters for you. Next question. Anything came up? Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Trauma for an individual starts after a person is born. False. Anyone? Any other thoughts?
True.
True. Okay. And the answer is false. It starts within the womb. So as soon as the mother conceives the baby, that is when it starts. If mom is drinking, mom is smoking, mom is getting abused, whatever's happening to mom, that impact goes onto that baby. And then that baby is, when it comes out the womb and is born, it may have, things as, disabilities, can't walk properly, not meeting his milestones. And it all depends on what happened in that period. The mom was pregnant with the baby. All right, last question. Mental health conditions are caused by personal problems or bad choices. True False. False, false. Yes, we all agree on this one. So it is false, right? So there are many factors that contribute to mental health conditions, and that includes, once again, genetics. It includes the environment. It includes your trauma that you've been through in your life. So yes, thank you guys for that. Online, hopefully you were able to contribute as well. Let's see. All right, so what I want us to do briefly is look into our folder, the original folder that we had that had all of the different attachments to it. You'll see in that folder. Yes, we have to get you the barcode. Yes, I have to get you the barcode. Are we able to go back to the?
It's okay, it's okay. I'll just follow along and get it after.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Everyone could get into the folder?
Yeah, I'm still, I need to change the address, so everybody should, and I'm still looking at it.
You came in late as well? Well, yeah, I'll go back to the slide. That's fine.
Yeah.
I was trying to go back to the original slide where they had the barcode.
Keep going. Cause at the
There it
end,
goes.
too.
Oh, no, this
No,
is this little.
this, no. This
There.
one.
All right, this is the barcode. So this you will see when you open up the attachment, there is going to be different attachments to it. I want you guys to review case of Tanya Williams, that is a case study. Just if you can read it for a couple of minutes and then highlight to whatever stands out to you, just highlight it in your mind or kind of write some notes down if you can. And then we're going to come back and keep going. We're gonna come back to it again after. So it says case of Tanya Williams. Do you see it? Case of Tanya Williams.
Okay.
Anyone who has the link.
Case study, sorry, case study. There you go. To say case study.
All right, try it again, so I'm giving everybody, I just changed the access.
Still saying the same thing?
Okay, I'm saying, all right. Kayla, Sonia.
Yes.
You're in? Okay, so just go to case study.
Okay.
Okay.
They had you as an editor, so you're in.
Got it.
Okay, case study. Yep. Yes, you're gonna just read that case study if you can for about 2 minutes, and then we're gonna just bring it back because we don't have a lot of time left. Did we all get a chance to read or? All right, so I'm going to keep moving forward. Just keep the case study in your mind. And we're going to come back to that case study. Okay, so now we're going to get into what is mental health. So who here can tell me what is mental health in their mind? How do you view mental health? What does it mean to you? How do you see? So what does mental health mean to you? Yes, thank you.
Mental wellness,
Mhm.
overall, how it affects your thinking,
Mhm.
socialization and just how you navigate life as a whole. And then considering the factors that you deal with on a daily basis. That's kind of how.
Yes, yes, thank you so much. So yes, mental health can be defined as our emotional, our physical, right? Our spiritual well-being and how it impacts our behaviors, how it impacts our, what we do on a day-to-day basis. It just impacts us overall, right? So mental health is pretty much embodied into our well-being overall as a person, and how it now impacts us as adult learners. We're going to look into that right now. Okay, so according to the National Institute of Mental Health, there are approximately, I would say approximately in the United States, there are 340 million people, approximately, right? So about 1/5 of those people are receiving mental health services. So think about 68 million people are receiving mental health services within the United States. Now, 43% of 68 million people have what's called mental health symptoms, but some of them are unaware of it. So think about more than half of those people do not know about their mental health symptoms, right? So once again, I'm gonna say it again, could have been confusing. 68 million people approximately have mental health symptoms and services that they are receiving and they are aware of it. Think about the other half, right? So 43% of people are receiving services. They probably go to therapy. They have IEPs in school. Maybe they have counseling centers in the school that they go and get help for. So more than half, so think about more than half of 68 million people are not receiving mental health services, and they are not aware of what they have, right? So think about maybe 34 million people in the world do not know that they even have mental health symptoms or they have mental health problems. So that includes our adult learners. So our adult learners could come into the classroom, present a certain way, and they have no idea that they have anxiety, they have stress, they have different things that's going on with them because they don't know that they even have a mental health problem, right? So how does that look into the classroom? So how does that look? That is adult learners coming into the classroom, they have anxiety. They may have PTSD, they may have past trauma. And you as the educator, you're seeing it in reference to their grades. Maybe they're not doing well in their papers. Maybe they're not presenting well on taking tests, but it could just be their mental health symptoms that is causing those problems. So what is the impact of trauma on the actual adult? So when it comes to the impact of trauma, trauma impacts different parts of the brain, right? So we're going to get into that in a second. So how your brain functions and how your brain cooperates when it comes to you learning different stuff, trauma impacts it. So when it comes to mental health functioning, trauma is going to give an individual emotional dysregulation, is going to make an individual get anxiety, get stress. And some of the physical health functioning that trauma can do is that trauma can cause a long-term health issues such as diabetes, such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, which then in turn can also create mental health symptoms as well for an individual. So we're going to get into what's called adverse childhood experiences. Anyone's ever heard of adverse childhood experiences before? So adverse childhood experiences are what is considered to be a traumatic event that happens within your childhood. So now we as adults, we all know that what happens in our childhood impacts us in our adulthood, yes. So these are events that carries with us throughout our childhood, and then long-term in our adulthood, we see that they impact us as adults. So either we have health problems, mental health problems, or we have alcohol and drug problems as adults because of what we went through in our childhood. So some of the types of different adverse childhood experiences, one is abuse. So as a child, did you go through any abuse? Physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. The next one is neglect. So as a child, was you neglected emotionally or physically? And then the next one is household dysfunction. So as a child, did mom get divorced? Was anyone in the house incarcerated? Was mom and dad separated? So what did you go through in your household that was dysfunctional, that now contributed towards you as an adult and how you learn and how you portray certain stuff in the environment, in the world? So here's the human brain. And I do want to walk over for a second to explain this better for you. All right, so we have here, which is the brain stem. So the brain stem controls the breathing rate, the swallowing, when a person swallows, it controls the startle response, the nervous system, the level of alertness, right? If you're sleepy or not, it controls everything. That's what the brain stem controls. And then we have the occipital lobes. which then controls the visual part, right? So how you seeing things, or is it blurry for you? Is it clear for you? This is what that controls. Are you recognizing words? Then we have the cerebellum, which then, right here, and that controls the balance, your equilibrium, your voluntary movements, your reflexes. And then we have the parietal lobe, which controls your visual attention. Are you paying attention in class? Is it, are you visually paying attention in class? Voluntary movement, manipulation, sensory integration. Then we have temporal lobes, and that controls your hearing, how you hear things. That controls your memory, your visual, your perceptions. And then we have the frontal lobe. Now this lobe here is not developed fully until you are 25 years or older. So a lot of young adults we see, they have judgment issues, memory issues. They cannot set goals and stick to it, right? So we see this with our young adult learners because this lobe is not fully developed yet. And whatever happens in your childhood impacts certain parts of your brain. So how does the ACEs, how does your adverse childhood experiences now impact you as an adult learner? So one would be in a logical aspect, it impacts your goal setting, it impacts your judgment as an adult learner. As a social learner, it impacts your startle response, your inhibition, right? So it impacts who you want to be around, how do you respond to people. Solitary, once again, it impacts your attention, right? Your attention span. So how do you learn? If it's solitary, are you able to stay attentive in that actual learning phase? Visually, it impacts your cognitive ability to remember things, to see things, right? So visually, that's how it impacts you. It impacts your brain development as well, visually. This is how your trauma from your childhood impacts you as an adult learner. Auditory is that it's difficult to focus at times when it comes to auditory. So maybe like you're listening to what your teacher is saying, but also your mind is going elsewhere, right? So you're not really fully paying attention. So it impacts that. Verbally, it impacts how you are able to emotionally express yourself. So maybe in class, you do have something that you want to say. You want to raise your hand and say, hey, I don't understand this. But now you're scared to say it, right? Because of your emotional response. So that's how it impacts you. And then kinesthetically, it impacts your frontal lobes, once again. So your frontal lobe, which is not fully developed until you're 25 years of age, it's going to impact your judgment, your memory, and how you are able to intake whatever you retain, what you learn in school. So what we are going to do next is we're going to do what's called an ACEs. It's called an ACEs assessment. So I will show you that. I'll pull it up on the screen, but also it's in the folder. You guys have access to the folder again. I'm going to end this.
Should be on the desktop.
ACE questionnaire.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, is it up on here? Yes. All right, so here we're going to,
You're not sharing for virtual, so you need to stop sharing this.
oh, sorry, stop sharing.
And reshare.
Reshare. All right. Okay. All right, so virtually, hopefully you guys are now able to see the questionnaire. Let me know if you're not able to see it. So here we're gonna now apply this to our case that we just read, right? So we're going to now look at the case of Tanya and apply this questionnaire to the case of Tanya. So for example, the first question is, when you were growing up during your first 18 years of life, did a parent or other adult in the household ever hit you, ever assault you, ever humiliate you? If Tanya went through that, you're going to put a score of 1 next to that question. So when you get done answering the questions, you're going to either put 1 or 0. If it applies to Tanya, you put the score of 1. If it does not apply to Tanya, you put the score of 0. When you get to the end, you're going to see tally up. If you have a score of 4 or higher, that indicates that now Tanya is at risk for health problems, mental health problems in her future as an adult learner. Okay, so we'll take about, how many minutes do you think I have to do that? Well, about 2 minutes to try to maybe you could turn to your neighbor, to your left, turn to somebody to just talk to and do it with them together. Online, if you can do that as well, or just kind of do it with yourself, but you can just use this questionnaire, look at the case study and see how it correlates with one another. And if you have any questions, let me know. I have a physical copy as well. Do you want a physical copy?
Yeah, does anybody need a physical copy?
Yeah, okay.
Again, that's the learning style, right? Some people find the technology, some of the tactile.
Visual, and
You know, they want to have to touch the paper.
How we doing online? Yeah.
Right on.
Are there any questions or anything? Any questions? Okay. How do you see any online comments? I think so.
Yeah, no, it's when it pops up, like here, because the chat is disabled. So if you go to Q&A, that's how I knew somebody, see Miranda said good.
Oh.
Right, so but the chat is, they only can speak through the chat.
Yes.
So, and there's-
Okay. Okay, so we're going to close it back. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this, go back to the PowerPoint. So, did we get a chance to complete the questionnaire? All right, so can someone just share with me your results and what's your take on the results and how do you interpret that?
So, in our group, we had 7
Oh, mm,
that we identified with, and I guess as a result, it makes sense that how you were raised and how you grew up in that environment you were in, can cause a lot of mental illness issues.
how you were raised in the environment you grew up in caused a lot of mental issues. Yes,
Yeah.
that's very true.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And then you can see now, and so just a question as far as, okay, you can now see that how you were raised in your environment causes mental issues. Now, how does that impact somebody who's trying to come into the environment now and learn? How does that impact them? So you can kind of see how it's all domino effects. How your environment now plays a huge factor, and that is you're going to college, you have a past, and now how does that now impact how you learn, how you retain information, and it's all connected or interconnected is a domino effect on everything. So having a 7 is really actually high, and that indicates definitely a problem in the future, whether it's health, mental health, drug abuse. It's going to be one of the 3 that the person is going to endure growing up. Yeah. So thank you so much for your feedback. Truly, truly appreciate that.
I could ask, did anybody get anything higher or less than a 4? I mean, a 7. Higher than a 7? No.
Less than a
Less-
4?
That's 7?
7, okay. 7 was the score?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we all got 7, and that's great. So I know you guys decided you didn't know this tool, but this tool is helpful if you work with like, you know, adults or even kids who are you don't really understand it. Maybe they're not behaving in school. Maybe you have an adult learner who's like not getting the material. So maybe getting a social worker involved and just having this assessment and having them kind of dig back into their history, then it all comes together for you. Like, okay, we went through this and they had this, and now this is how they learn. This is how the trauma impacted them. So everything is interconnected when it comes to learning and mental health and everything. So just to wrap it up for you guys when it comes to mental health, so how can you, as the teacher, the educator, how can you, or even the supports, the administrator, how can you now support individuals when it comes to mental health and them learning and them learning in their adulthood? One is you can create an environment that's inclusive for them, right? So allow them to feel welcomed, allow them to feel like they belong in this environment despite what they went through in their past. You can help students become self-advocates. So a lot of students don't know how to be self-advocates. They have these problems, they know they do, but they don't have the courage to stand up and just say, hey, you know, I need this, I need that. So encourage them to be self-advocates for themselves. Also provide in-class accommodations, but also some schools do have a department for that. So students are able to go to a department and request accommodations for test taking, for papers. Tell them, direct them to go there and get assistance. Also be able to utilize different teaching styles, right? So if you notice your students or have this one style, assess their needs and see who needs what and alter your teaching styles for the student. Be conscious of your own learning styles, be conscious of your own bias, because you may come in with your own bias, right? So be aware of that when it comes to teaching. Also provide resources to your students, counseling centers, social workers that's outside. If you can provide that to your students, that's awesome. It helps them. And also just be aware to set, once again, with your students, clear expectations. What are they required to do when it comes to learning, when it comes to class, and empower them, right? Empower your students to be the best person of who they are, the best version of who they are. Continue to empower them. That's very important. And we're going to get more into how you can empower the adult learner.
All right, so I know that our time is short and we probably have about 6 more slides to go through, but we've already been talking about what's on the slides. And so I would like to kind of stay here for the next few minutes and then open it up for questions and discussion. Again, I said, we're not going to be lecturing to you. Still sticking with Tanya, the case study of Tanya. How would you empower Tanya in her journey? She's starting off as an adult learner. We've talked about learning styles. You having a greater awareness of more learning styles, a greater awareness of how childhood trauma impacts the adult student. Empowerment is a big thing. It's not just a word, it's actually a process in helping self-efficacy grow to become stronger, become more confident. Just take a moment and just think, how would you empower Tanya as she's starting off in one of your educational programs? Yes.
One idea that comes to mind is that if she's trying to study in the evening, and she can't remember things, maybe it's time to put some quiet music on, some white noise to kind of help her come down and then get closer to refocus. It may be a power nap that she needs to take to actually rejuvenate herself again, or just teach her how to bring it down so that now she can refocus herself, because she has so many responsibilities that how to leave those and pick up something else.
Nice. Anybody else want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, me too. But I also like, back at home, our library has kid area pretty much.
Oh.
And so I would, suggest for her to, sometimes we get caught up that we have to do it on campus, But through my journey, I learned because, I did online learning when I had my kids. And so I realized that I loved the library when I was in undergrad, but I didn't have that, opportunity. So I know what local resources she can go to with her children. And some of the librarians are really, really helpful, but also use it as an opportunity, to, involve her kids, but say, we're gonna study together.
Yes.
Just time management too, but time management will, finding those little spaces. What things can I do while I'm cooking or while the kids are bathing, little things like that too. So just reset. And I like her professor was like, come for office hours. But sometimes we can't wait till office hours. We gotta have a conversation right now. So I would use the opportunity to just talk to her in that moment to give her whatever she needed.
Great, and it's interesting that you mentioned office hours, because in my recent years, I've changed office hours to student hours. Right, just that simple change in terminology, a lot brings an invitation, right? Office hours, I know when I was undergrad, it was like, oh God, I gotta go see. There's usually some dread to it, and don't get called to office hours, like an email or comes to you, like, you gotta come see me in my office hours. That just never sounds like it's a good thing. But simply just changing the language from office hours to student hours, I've seen an increase in students booking. They usually see me virtually because we teach, we have 3 campuses. And so I'm usually on 2 different campuses. So they usually book me virtually, but there's been an increase in that, in just changing the language, like student hours are open to you, right? And they'll come with almost any and everything, whether it's school related or it appears not to be school related, but we know with adult students, even if it's outside of school, it's still school related because it's going to impact what's happening academically. So as we close out, and again, there's questions, I just wanted to bring this particular slide to your attention. And we've been talking about it between Dr. Murray and myself, from the high expectations, setting clear expectations, regardless of what the learning style is, regardless of if there has been any level of mental trauma. And I was there to say that we have all, those of us sitting in this room, then we've all had some level of mental trauma. It just determines whether or not it's 2% versus 25%. We've all had some level of mental trauma. So we do need clear goal setting, clear expectations, what is expected of the student. They can understand if there's going to be consequences, what does that look like for them, right? We shouldn't put them in a position where they're being surprised. Competency-based learning. So let me go this way. Making sure that your curriculum actually fits their needs, right? If they come in at a level 2 and they want to, I want to get through this quickly. No, you should not go into a level 3. You need to be at a level 2. You're going to get there, and we want you to get there strong, right? Not that you're there and you're struggling and the anxiety is building up. So just making sure that the curriculum actually supports what's happening in their lifestyle. I was already mentioned customized pathways, right? Like, yes, they have to take certain courses to get to the finish line, but hopefully you have more than one track that they can actually take to get there, right? Some people can take 4 classes. Some people only take 1 class. They have family, they gotta work, right? I know especially when I'm advising students in general, but definitely my adult students, I'm asking about everything external before I talk about what's gonna happen on campus. Because if you got a 40-hour-a-week job and sometimes you're being asked to stay late, okay, then maybe you only can take 1 class, right? And if there's funding involved, and like, oh, well, especially if there's federal funding, like financial aid, if your programs do that, some students tend to feel like, I have to take 4 classes or I have to do this to be able to get the funding. But the goal is we need you to be successful. And we need you to be strong as you go from level A to level B, right? And so, yes, we're going to customize this. It may take you longer. Like I tell students now, just for undergraduate students, it doesn't really take you 4 years to graduate. Presidents of colleges like you to get out in 4 years. Realistically, it takes you 6 on the average. Those of you who have college age students, right? Not unless they're taking 15 credits every single semester, they're not getting out in 4 years. And 15 credits may be too much for them, right? Especially if you want them to retain the information and to be successfully. I can speak for myself. When I got my master's degree, I was in a 2-year program, and like a nut, I did it in a year and worked full-time. I can't tell you what I learned. I mean, literally after I got out the program, and I said to myself, I said, every semester after 12 credits, I had to release that information and take on more information. That's not how learning should be. And that's what we shouldn't be doing it for our adult students also. This is great that we have school anytime, any place, anywhere, but it also can be overwhelming. And we have to be mindful of how much we're saying, okay, oh, you have this going on, just take an online class. If that is not your learning style, they will sink quickly. And they think that they can handle online because what do they do all day long? they're on social, not all day long because they have other responsibilities, but because they're on their technology and social media, they think that translates into, I can now do schoolwork. And yeah, I'm seeing the head like, it doesn't, it does not work. It does not work that way. We spoke about, Dr. Murray spoke about having a comprehensive support system. Those of us, maybe older, we know about the village, right? Creating that village. The village is also needed for academics, right? Who are the key players, right? From an entrepreneurial standpoint, in my mind, I'm like, who's my virtual board? Who is it I can tap into if there's something that I need, something that I'm short in doing, something I don't know how to do? Who are those people? Helping them to create their village academically as well as personally. And this has been spoken to in regards to student agency, having them advocate, speak up for themselves, use that transferable skill. They know how to advocate for their family members, their children. It's a transferable skill. Transfer it into actually doing your own life. And with that, we are done. We went through some things quickly, but we're going to close out and ask, are there any more questions that we can answer? Our email address is on the last slide. You can feel free to email us any questions and we will get back to you if something pops up later on in the day about any of the resources that are in the folder. Any questions? Any comments? Did you learn something? You did? Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.